The Atlanta Braves lose another ugly game on Tuesday against the Los Angeles Dodgers. A big reason for that was the defense, which has been a problem for the Atlanta Braves all year long. On today's podcast, we're going to dive into those defensive numbers and see where those struggles are coming from. All that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jacob Mastriani, and you can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball. Also, make sure you check out my written work over at bravestoday.com. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter as well as LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments that you have for the podcast. I always enjoy hearing from you, the listener, and thanks so much for supporting Locked On Braves and making us your first listen of each and every day. And thank you to all my everydayers out there. Today's episode, we'll be talking about the 8-1 loss to the Dodgers on Wednesday, another ugly game, which was an issue because of the defense, which has been a problem all year long for the Atlanta Braves. So in our Stat of the Day Wednesday, it's going to surround the defensive issues for the Braves. We'll dive into that very deeply on today's podcast and also talk about Strider and his struggles in the month of May. And let's just start there on Wednesday's game, an 8-1 loss to the Dodgers and Spencer Strider on the mound. And I know you look at the line score here, you see that he gives up 4 runs. He loses the game effectively. I didn't think it was that bad in this one. Yes, he struggled early, and I know a lot of people have been talking on Twitter the fact that he struggles early in innings. I looked into that, and it's not the case. One thing I will say is that he does tend to throw a lot of pitches, and he does have to battle, it seems like, in those first couple innings of a game, and it seems like that always keeps him from going deeper into a game. He went 6 innings in this one, and you'll take that from Strider, a guy who is going to throw a lot of pitches anyway because he strikes out a lot of hitters. That's just the nature of it. But I really thought he was good in this game. After the second inning, I thought he was just flat out dominant. But 5 starts in the month of May for Spencer Strider, a 4.23 ERA, a 1.27 whip, 234 average against, good for many people, but not quite to the level that we're used to with Spencer Strider. 16 runs, 13 earned runs. He's given up 4 runs in 3 of 5 starts. Now, only 2 runs, 2 earned runs on Tuesday night, but still 4 runs allowed by Spencer Strider in 3 of 5 starts. Not really what you expect from him, even still early in his career. And he's given up 4 home runs in the month of May as well. He's had no outings where he hasn't given up a run, which again, most pitchers are going to give up a run every time they start, but the expectations are so high for Spencer Strider, it's almost a bit wild even at this point. Again, very early in his career to look at his month of May, 5 starts now, and see that he didn't have a single start where he didn't allow a run. We just kind of have become accustomed to that with Spencer Strider. He's still gone at least 5 innings. It's not like he's getting blown up early and having to exit these games, before the 5th inning. He's gone at least 5 innings in all of his May starts, and he struck out 48 batters in 27 2/3 innings. So that dominance is still there, but it just does seem like there's an inning or two just about every start right now where Spencer Strider is battling it and things kind of get away from him a little bit. But again, in this one, he's not the reason the Braves lost this game. I thought he was really good in this one, especially after the second inning. After the second inning, he was the dominant Spencer Strider, the Cy Young candidate that we know he can be. He only allowed 2 base runners or batters to reach after the second inning, and they both were Jason Hayward. I was trying to figure out how to say the singular of that because it was just one person, but they reached twice, and it happened to be Jason Hayward. So he was absolutely dominant after that second inning. And in that second inning, things got away from him after he got 2 quick outs because of an error on Matt Olson. And then that inning kind of unraveled for him. He did give up a home run to Hayward. Sorry, it would have been a 1-2-3 inning. Gave a home run to Hayward to start that inning on a pitch up above the zone. And Mark Wellman tweeted out, it's the first time Hayward's hit a fastball of that velocity at that part of the zone since 2018. It was just a good swing to Hayward, who apparently just came up sitting on a fastball, got one, and was able to time it up for a home run. So again, after that, you got 2 quick outs, and then you got the ground ball to first base. Matt Olson boots it. Base runner reaches. It's still just a base runner with 2 outs. Strider's got to find a way to get out of that and help out Matt Olson over there. Makes a beautiful pitch to Mookie Betts that, look, it grazes the zone. It's one of those pitches. It's in the shadow zone, as they call it. Could have gone either way. It doesn't go Spencer Strider's way. And you just wonder, with the error, that pitch not going his way, suddenly is that getting into his head, playing with his emotions? He ends up walking Betts. He spikes a ball in the dirt to Freddie Freeman before they intentionally walk him. And then he hangs a slider right over the middle of the plate to Will Smith. I could have crushed that slider that was just hung over the middle. It didn't have that break on it. It just sat there in the middle of the plate. And Will Smith, being a good hitter that he is, just smacked it into left field for an easy 2-run single. And with the way the offense was in this one, I still believe they could come back at 4-1 early in the game, but it just kind of felt like everything going against the Braves at that point, that the game was over. Now, credit again to Spencer Strider. He settles down after that, and he was as dominant as I've seen him all year from innings 3 through 6. Again, just 2 base runners allowed after that. But that second inning did get away from him, part of it being that error. And then again, I don't know if he lost focus. He was thinking about the error, thinking about that call to Mookie Betts that didn't go his way, but he really just wasn't himself after that. But overall, I thought it was a good start for Strider. He's not the reason the Braves lost this game. Went 6 innings, only gave up 2 earned runs, had 11 strikeouts. I mean, it was a mostly dominant performance from him. It's just that error, that second inning, really let things kind of get away. And when your offense goes silent, as the Braves did on Tuesday night, it certainly doesn't help anything. And they got another first inning run, but as we talked about yesterday, they've done that a lot here lately, and then it seems like they go silent for the middle of games, and then sometimes they'll come back at the end and either add some on or come back, as we've seen them do over the last couple of weeks now. I went back and checked the runs by innings this year. First inning, the Braves are first in all of baseball with 42 runs scored. They're actually second in all of baseball with second inning runs with 40 scored. So they're really good in those first 2 innings of a game. They really can jump on a starter. But again, like I talked about yesterday, it seems like they do that and they got the pitcher on the ropes and then they let them back into it. And you see these starters are able to get through 5, sometimes 6 innings because the Braves don't get that knockout blow in innings 3 through 5. And you look at the third inning, they've scored 22 runs. That's 20th in baseball. In the fourth inning, 22 runs. That's 22nd in baseball. Now it gets a little better after that. In the 5th inning, they rank 13th in runs scored. 6th inning, it's 16th. 7th inning, for whatever reason, is their worst. They rank 26th in all of baseball in the 7th inning with scoring just 15 runs this year. And then it gets better in the 8th inning, 41 runs scored. And then the 9th inning, hopefully you're winning and you don't have to really either bat in the 9th inning if you're the home team, but they're 21st in runs scored in the 9th inning. But, that one, you might not get as many opportunities if you're winning games as the Braves have. But again, I think the big takeaway here is they're jumping on teams in the first and second inning. That's great. But then they're not following up on that the second time through the order and really putting a pitcher away, essentially putting the game away, changing the way the bullpen strategy goes for both teams the rest of the way, allowing the starter to get through 5 or 6 innings and give the other team a chance to fight back in the game. That's becoming a real issue for this offense. Now, you can't be great in every inning of a game. You can't be top 5 and run scored in every single inning. I get that, but they need to do a better job that second time through the order. It's like their first time through and their third time through, they're really good, but that second time through, they're really bad. And you got to try to even that out a little bit. And in these outings where you jump on a pitcher early, put them away, get that knockout blow. They're just not doing that a lot this season. And I talked, several podcasts ago about the issues with runners in scoring position. I believe that was last Wednesday on our Wednesday stat of the day. Over 7 with runners in scoring position on Tuesday night. They had opportunities. They had moments. They could have gotten back in this game, but they could not get that big hit, something they've really struggled with all season long. And I tip my hat to Bobby Miller, who I thought looked really good. Young pitcher, obviously has good stuff, but he made some good pitches when he needed to in this outing. I mentioned all the opportunities that the Braves had over 7th runners in scoring position. There's also a lot of deep counts in this game that the Braves had, and Bobby Miller made great pitch after great pitch in those situations. He had a 3-2 count against Matt Olson and got a strikeout, a 10-pitch at bat, a perfectly placed 100-mile-per-hour fastball up and away. The at bat right after that, he goes full again against Sean Murphy and gets him to ground out. And that was on a slider, front door slider that Murphy rolled over. He hit it 96.2 miles per hour, hit it pretty hard, but right into the dirt. It took Ozuna to a 3-2 count and struck out. He chased the slider off the plate away, and that's when he had Ozzie Albies on third with 1 out, so that was a big spot there, and he made a really good pitch. Arcia grounded out on a 3-2 pitch. Acuna grounded out on a 3-2 pitch against Bobby Miller. So again, a lot of deep counts, a lot of big moments in this game, and every time it seemed like Bobby Miller made a good pitch to get out of those, and the Braves just weren't able to capitalize. So just good execution by a young pitcher, and Bobby Miller is a top prospect, very good young pitcher, but he made all the big pitches that he had to in this one. And just quite simply, when it comes down to, I'm going to be rather negative on this podcast. If you think I'm typically a positive person on here, and I typically do try to be a positive person, this is a negative podcast. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, because the Braves have simply been getting outplayed. They've been playing a lot of good teams lately, and they've been getting outplayed by a lot of these good teams. I really go back to the Marlins series. I haven't seen them play too many clean games since then, and that was against the Marlins, who have been a pretty good team this year. But then that started the stretch of games against all these teams above 500, and you just haven't seen a lot of clean games, which is going to happen against good teams. I understand that, but the Braves are a good team themselves, and they need to play better baseball. And they've won some of these series. So again, they're still able to win, but it's just they're not playing consistently good fundamental baseball. And that's what annoys me more than anything. And that's why next on our Stat of the Day Wednesday, we're going to do a deep dive into the Braves defense, look at some of the stats there and just how bad it's been, because I'm somebody who loves the defensive side of the game. And right now, for the most part, it's pretty tough to watch the Braves defensively. We'll talk about those stats here and next. You remember that 30-day free trial you signed up for 90 days ago? Yeah, me neither. And that's why I need RocketMoney to help me find those unwanted subscriptions and cancel those subscriptions. They'll cancel those subscriptions for you. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about. You could be wasting money and not even realizing it. RocketMoney helps you find those forgotten subscriptions so you can stop paying for the ones you don't use, or you can stop paying for the ones you don't use. RocketMoney is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. RocketMoney also helps you manage, or over 3 million people have used RocketMoney, saving the average person up to $720 a year. Stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb. The Braves play the Dodgers again on Wednesday night at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. The Braves will try to avoid getting swept at home by their rival Dodgers. Catch every pitch of the Braves' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. All right, it's our Stat of the Day, a Wednesday segment. And our Stat of the Day is 30th, because that's where the Braves rank in outs above average, OAA, a defensive metric that a lot of people use. They have a -19 OAA. Now, I've been very vocal. OAA is a very flawed stat to use, and I've also been very vocal in the fact that I don't fully trust defensive analytics. But even with your eye this year, your eye test, Braves defense has not been good, and you don't really need many analytics to tell you that. But we're going to look at those analytics today, because I do think if you look at them on the whole and put them all together, it kind of gives you somewhat of a picture to confirm what your eyes are telling you and what you're seeing when you're watching the games. But I'm going to define some of these stats for you as we go. Outs above average is a defensive statistic that measures fielding skill. It represents the amount of outs a player has saved. It's calculated by assigning values to plays based on their difficulty and then adding the values of each play for a season-long cumulative number. Now, OA does not factor in arm strength, at least not right now. So that's why you're going to see some of these low, particularly on Ron Acuna Jr., controversial tweet going around on that this week as well that I think was pretty ridiculous, but I'll leave that there. And I know fielding percentage isn't always a useful stat. People kind of throw it away nowadays, but the Braves have the worst fielding percentage in MLB as well at 981. That was coming into Tuesday. That was before Tuesday's game. So it's probably even worse than that now. And they made 34 errors on the season, which are the most in all of baseball. So when it gets down to the simplest form of evaluating defense, Braves have made the most errors in all of baseball, which should just tell you right there the defense has not been very good. Now, the Braves have a negative 11.3 UZR. That's ultimate zone rating, another defensive analytics stat that a lot of people use to value defensive players. UZR quantifies a player's entire defensive performance by attempting to measure how many runs a defender saved. It takes into account errors, range, outfield arm, and double play ability. It differs slightly from DRS, defensive runs saved, which we're also going to use in its formula, but the concept is the same. Now, the Braves rank 26th in Fangraph's defensive rating at negative 9.1. Their defensive rating kind of takes all this and jumbles it up and combines it together. So still not very good there. Not the worst in all of baseball like some of these other stats, but 26th, not great either. And again, just by the eye test, which is what I typically use just because, I love defense. I can tell just by watching a game if somebody's a good defender or not. But these analytics do kind of put things on paper, put it into perspective a little bit more. But looking, just the eye test you can use with the Braves this year, it has not been great. They're not making those plays to put you above. You look at the game on Tuesday night as an example. Big spot in the game. They hit a ball between third and shortstop. It wasn't the hardest play in the world, but Max Muncy, dives, gets up, makes the throw, gets the out. If that gets through, a run scores. If he bobbles it, doesn't make a good throw there, a run scores, but he makes the play. You go in the ninth inning, 8-1 game, ball that maybe drops in. Maybe that BABIP starts to correct itself a little bit for the Braves, but no, Jason Hayward comes in, makes a dive and catch. The Braves just aren't making those types of plays often enough. Not plays that are necessarily spectacular, but plays that you could make in a big spot to help your team. So who is the problem? I'll tell you one person that's not the problem. It's Sean Murphy. He's first in Fangraph's defensive rating for catchers. And when you're doing defensive ratings, always do it by position, because a lot of these rankings or these ratings take into the defensive aspect of things. Like the first basemen are graded way lower than shortstops, because shortstops are much harder and more important and valuable position defensively. So always categorize these by their positions. But Murphy is first in Fangraph's defensive rating at 10, and he has 3 defensive runs saved as well, DRS. He's also first in framing, and he has a cannon of an arm. And this is why I don't always buy into defensive statistics and analytics, because it can't possibly account for the fact that runners don't go on Sean Murphy because of his arm, or the amount of times that runners don't try to take an extra base on Ron Acuna Jr. because of his arm. Example of this on Tuesday night, ball hit to right field. Mookie Betts, a smart runner. He's always looking to go first and third. He jogged in the second base. He wasn't even going to think about testing Acuna's arm. There was another fly ball to right field later in the game. It was Will Smith at third, so not the fastest runner in the world. He doesn't even attempt to go home on Acuna's arm. And you see that all the time on balls hit to right field now. Runners are not taking the extra base on Acuna. They're not even trying to tag up on him. And, these stats can't possibly quantify that and how many times that saves a run for their team. So, again, it's why I don't fully buy into analytics. I still stick with my eye test first, but a lot of these numbers, do back up what I'm seeing this year. But all that to say, Sean Murphy's not the issue. Matt Olson ranks 22nd among first basemen with at least 200 innings with a negative 4.6 defensive rating. Now, for all of you screaming for Freddie Freeman, he ranks 19th at negative 3.6. So do with that what you will. Matt Olson's also has a negative 2 DRS, a negative 0.2 UZR, and a negative 2 OAA, all ranking in the 20s among first basemen. Not great. One of the, you could say, easily 10 worst first baseman defensively. Not ideal for somebody who's won a Gold Glove and you thought was coming over with a Gold Glove. Ozzie might be the biggest problem on the team right now defensively. He's last in OAA at negative 6, and Fangraph's defensive rating as well. He's last at negative 3.8 among second basemen. He does have 1 DRS, and again, it's the eye test for me with Ozzie. He's not making those plays that we're accustomed to seeing him make. You know, he's going to get the balls in his area. Obviously, the arm's never been good, but hasn't mattered as much as second base. You wonder with the shift going away if maybe that's affecting him a little bit here and kind of exposing his lack of range. But it hasn't been very good for Ozzie Albies. The analytics say that, but I think even if you're watching the games, you can see that as well from Ozzie. Now, Riley, we know, not the best defensive player in the world over there at third base, just doesn't have a lot of side-to-side movement. I still think he's really good at coming in on baseballs just by my eye test. I don't know what the analytics say on that. And I still think, everything in his area, he's going to do a good job and make the play. He's great at staying down on the baseball. He's good at picking it over there. But again, in his bubble, he's going to make the plays, but he doesn't do much outside of that. Riley's 22nd in Fangraphs rating at negative 2.2, and he's 38th in OAA at -3, and he has a minus 3.6 UZR, which ranks 17th among third basemen. Now, if I would have told you that Eddie Rosario ranks as one of the best defensive players for the Braves, you probably would have thought I was crazy, but he's third in Fangraphs rating at 0.9 among left fielders. Now, left field is one of the least valued defensive positions in baseball, and it's where most of your worst defenders are put, especially outfielders. But still, of those, he ranks third in Fangraphs defensive rating, and he's 13th in outs above average at 0. He's fourth in defensive run save with 2, and he's third in UZR at 2. And he has a pretty good arm as well. So Rosario has not been a problem out there in left field this season. Michael Harris in center field. Know the struggles he's having at the plate. We detailed that on Tuesday's episode. You want to go back and give that a listen to get a deep dive into what's plaguing Michael Harris right now. Nothing plaguing him defensively. I don't think he's been as great as we thought he would be, or maybe even as great as he was at times last year. Again, I think this all kind of points back to the injuries a little bit, but he's still been really good. He's 5th in defensive rating at 3. He's 9th in OAA at 3, and he's 8th in DRS at 2, and 14th in UZR at 0.5. So he's still been a top 10 center fielder defensively. I think maybe even top 8. Still not that Gold Glove level that we thought he would be, but he's certainly not a problem out there in center field. He's still, again, among the top 8, 10 best defensive center fielders in the game. Now, Acuna, this is the one that really, again, it had a lot of debate this week on Twitter, and I don't remember the account's name, but somebody, did a deep dive on why Acuna is not as good defensively as he could be. Look, he doesn't get great jumps. I'll say that. And he just doesn't seem as fast in the outfield as he does on the base paths. Whatever the reason for that, whether it's the injury, that's where he got hurt. You saw him make a great, a leaping catch on Tuesday night, and I think we're starting to see more of that. He's obviously made a lot of great catches up against the wall. And again, the arm is elite, maybe the best in baseball, but that doesn't factor into a lot of these stats that we're going to look at. He's 19th in defensive rating on Fangraphs at -4. He is dead last in OAA at -6. Again, OAA doesn't factor in the arm, and he's 11th in DRS at 1 and 13th in UZR at -1. So those are a little bit more favorable towards Acuna. Look, he doesn't get the best jumps, and like I said, it seems like he doesn't have that closing speed as well. Maybe he's a little bit tentative, especially on the balls in, it feels like. Again, the guy had a traumatic injury on a defensive play. I can kind of understand that. But again, even if he's just, barely outside of the top 10 in those defensive ratings. What he does with his arm, and again, you can't quantify it in some of these stats, the amount of runs that he saves with his arms, not just by throwing runners out, and he does already have 4 outfield assists this year, but when runners don't go on him, they don't take that extra base. They don't try to stretch that single into a double. They don't try to go first to third. They don't tag up on a sac fly to right field. You don't factor that in to how valuable that is for the Braves and for Ronald Acuna Jr. So what can be done? What can they do going forward? I mean, these are your position players for the next 4, 5, 6 years. A lot of these guys are locked up for a long time. They just simply have to be better. I still think they're still really solid up the middle with Murphy behind the plate and Michael Harris in center field. Arcia is solid at shortstop. He doesn't have that range. He is so slow. I did not realize how slow he was until seeing a couple of double plays he hit into this past week that I could have ran out very easily. He's very slow, doesn't have a lot of range, does have a very good arm. He ranks 12th in arm strength among shortstop right now with an average throw of 85.5 miles per hour. Put that in context, Dansby Swanson is next to last at 78 miles per hour. Now, Dansby's instincts are off the chart. He has good range, all of that. That's why he won a Gold Glove last year. But Arcia's arm does make up for a lot of those deficiencies. So I think he's solid enough. And then, like I said, Michael Harris in center, Murphy behind the plate. Ozzy's the one that is just a conundrum right now. He's got to figure it out and be better. Those guys on the corner have to be better as well. Look, I can live with Riley just making the plays in his bubble. Olsen, I expected to do more. And really, even last year, at the beginning of last year, was not great. And then I thought he really improved toward the second half of last season. Was hoping that would carry into this year, but it has not. And then I think the outfield is fine for the Braves. So for me, really the weak spots, I believe, are second, third, and first base. Those are the spots where I think the Braves are really struggling defensively right now. And those three guys, Riley, Ozzy, and Olsen, got to pick it up defensively to help this team out and help their pitchers out. Sorry I went into a lot of depth there, but I love talking defense, could talk all day long, but do want to move into Wednesday's game where the Braves are going to try to salvage a game in this series, and also a really good start from Michael Soroka. How soon before we see him? We'll discuss that next. I'm fortunate to work from home, so I know all about comfort when it comes to wearing clothes and loungewear around the house. I'm typically just gym shorts and t-shirt all day long, but now I have something else that I can wear and that I enjoy wearing, and that is a Birddogs. I got a pair of Birddogs shorts, and I've pretty much been wearing them every day since. I was at the SEC baseball tournament on Tuesday wearing my Birddogs shorts because not only are they just as comfortable as my gym shorts that I typically wear, but they're fashionable enough that I can go to a baseball game that I'm working at and still look good and look presentable. I can go take my kids to school and everybody's not looking at me as the slob father who works from home. So I can wear these just about anywhere that I go, look good and feel good. And that's exactly what you want. So if you want that, make sure you go to Birddogs. You can look great, feel comfortable. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. And when you enter our promo code LOCKEDONMLB, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Again, that's birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB at checkout. Michael Soroka pitched for Gwinnett on Tuesday, and he was really, really good. 6 innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, 1 earned, 8 strikeouts. Here's the key here. 96 pitches for Michael Soroka. That is great. He's starting to get stretched out. It feels like we're a start or two away from seeing him make his return. We'll see how he responds after this one. Obviously, it's the most pitches he's thrown this year in a game. We'll see if maybe they give him an extra day of rest before giving him another start. I think depending on how he responds to this and depending on how quickly the Braves push him, turn him around to pitch again. I mean, he could technically pitch again on Sunday. I don't think they're going to do that. They made, and every minor league team is off on Monday. So it's possible they rest him until next Tuesday to let him pitch again. But I feel like we're one more minor league start away and him having this type of performance. Again, I said last time when I watched him pitch, I didn't get to watch much of this one on Tuesday, but the start before, it was the best I had seen him. So this is very encouraging for Soroka. I think we're maybe one more outing away from seeing him make his return, but there is an open spot on Thursday that obviously he's not available for. I think that's going to go to Dylan Dodd, who is not currently on the scheduled rotation for Gwinnett. I think we're going to see him come back up, and he's going to get another opportunity. I don't know who the casualty in the bullpen will be. I'm starting to lean towards Michael Tonkin, especially had another somewhat rough outing on Tuesday as well. Gave that 3-run homer to JD Martinez, but I do think we see Dylan Dodd on Thursday against the Phillies. But on Wednesday, it'll be Tony Gonsolin versus Bryce Elder. Braves looking to Bryce Elder to help them salvage a game in this series. Tony Gonsolin this year, 5 starts, a 1.13 ERA, 0.92 whip, but just 19 strikeouts in 24 innings. He's only allowed an earned run in 1 start this year. Usually doesn't go more than 85 pitches. He's working his way back from injury, or was. He's fully back now. He's walked a good bit this year. He doesn't strike out a lot, but he gets outs. His expected ERA is 3.46, has a low 90s fastball with mediocre spin rates. But again, this guy gets out. So one reason for that is his split finger, which he doesn't give up hits on. Batters are hitting under 100 against that pitch this year. He throws a slider and a curveball as well. So very good pitcher. Going to be another tough task for the Braves. Bryce Elder, can he continue his magic against this powerful Dodgers lineup? And if he's going to have success, that Braves defense is going to have to bring their A game on Wednesday, because there's going to be a lot of balls put in play, perhaps a lot of balls put in play at high velocities. So you're going to need that defense on point. And you're going to need the offense to really step up and have a big game if the Braves are going to win a game in this series. Again, they'll play game 3 of that series on Wednesday night at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. It's Bryce Elder going against Tony Gonsolin. Catch every pitch of the Braves hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Follow me at ShortstopBall. And make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.